KeithAndrewNetWork. The whole point of my talk show is to show you that even with having a learning disability, I can still amount to something. And at the same time, I'm able to turn myself into an example for people out there dealing with any types of learning disabilities and disabilities to never give up and prove people wrong. Prove to them that labels do not dictate who you are and who you're going to be, so prove them and stand out to something.
Hello, everybody. This is Owen Palmiotti, owner of Owen Palmiotti Productions. I am a writer, filmmaker, co-founder of an art, music, and film festival. I was just interviewed by Keith Andrew, and his podcast was great. He asked some awesome questions about my background, about what drives me and fuels me as a creative. And ultimately, you have to also think of that is what drives people, because you're not in their shoes. You have to always ask people. And if you're interested in any of these types of creative arts or outside of that space, Keith Andrew is a great podcaster. Sign up for it. And I hope you enjoy listening to other people's stories.
Today, it's episode 997. That is right, 997. We're getting very close to our goal of 1,000. Today, we have Owens. Mr. Owens, who is the owner of his own production company. Now, the first question, as I would like to ask you, as you heard from the recommendation, he already introduced himself, obviously. But I would like to say, Mr. Owens, thank you for being with us today.
Of course. Thank you for having me. My name is Owen, as already outlined. I'm a writer. I'm a filmmaker. I have co-founded a music and art and film festival, very big in the community to support, connect, collaborate, and connect people together. So I'm an open book. I'm happy to answer any questions that you've got for me.
No, absolutely. The first one I want to ask you, it's kind of the basic question everyone asks. Tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your background.
Sure. Yeah. So born and raised in Monroe, New York, went to Monroe Woodbury High School, class of 2003, ended up going to SUNY Maritime College, graduated in 2007 with a bachelor's of science in marine transportation, a minor in naval science, and a second minor in international business. What that gave me is the opportunity to travel the globe. I've been to 45 countries, between being in the merchant marine and also being in the Navy. So between those two paths in my career, it gave me a lot of experiences, gave me a lot of time to just look out a window in the middle of the ocean, which then gave me time to write and create. Ended up starting with novels. So when I was in high school, I battled dyslexia throughout my childhood. I had a slight learning disability. I would stumble with numbers and letters. It impeded my confidence. And as a result, it was one of those situations where my parents were very supportive. They ended up pushing me to write and read. But I was still kind of a nervous Nelly. I was still not comfortable in my skin. And as a result, by putting myself out there at book signings, I was able to talk to people, grow some confidence, and get a bit more comfortable talking to people. It was also ironic, too, when I was a college professor for 5.5 years. Putting yourself in front of a group of people where you're the center of the world really sharpened my skill sets talking to people, because a lot of writers struggle with the business element of stuff. And it's one of those situations where, at the end of the day, you have to kind of decide which brain do you want to use? Do you want to use the left hemisphere or the right hemisphere? Most people are only one, right? They're either creative or they're business. So by doing the novels, by doing book signings, I got accustomed to talking to people, growing comfortable with pitching. Pitching is one of the most important things for a creative, because you could have the best script, you could have the best book, you could have the best painting, you could have the best fill in the blank. But if people don't know about it, you're never going to get anywhere. And it's this sad truth and reality of the creative arts. So by doing the books, getting familiar with everything, learning the business aspect of things, I ended up transitioning into writing a short film. So one of my good friends went to film school. She had a project for her senior thesis, and she gave me a couple bullet points to expand into a short story, in which so I expanded it. I wrote out a storyline. She then helped me because at that point I wasn't a screenwriter, so I didn't know anything about formatting or anything like that. And we ended up putting together a short screenplay that she directed, produced. It was her senior thesis. She ended up getting an A on it. It got accepted, I think, to about 15 or so festivals and won some awards. And it got to the point where I wasn't on set. I wasn't part of the production. I only put pen to paper and wrote something. At that point, I met some of the casting crew and then got into this weird vehicle where creating and collaborating is very addicting. Meeting people with the same passion, surrounding yourself with good people. It was a world unto itself. And as a result, it opened the floodgate. And I mean that truthfully, because the best thing you can do if you are passionate for a certain craft is to just go do it, is to just put yourself in that situation. And um, 8 years ago, I had the opportunity to do a short film, and I'm now 53, 54 movies in between short films and fan films and features, starting to work in the TV space for episodics. Now, most of these are on the smaller scale of things. Obviously, I don't have a big bankroll. I don't have financiers of the millions and billions of dollars that some of the studios have. So right now, every project is a singular entity. Sometimes we use the same people, sometimes we don't. But it's one of those things where it's a really cool side hustle for me. It's a really great hobby that is starting to transition into a business. I have a lot of projects that have the capability of being financially savvy with the right puzzle pieces, and that's the hard part of creative endeavors. Is unless it's going to generate money for an investor, a lot of people aren't going to touch it. So you kind of have to start small on something where they know they're not going to miss that money. You're not going to miss the time and sweat equity, because sweat equity is really how indie films are made. There's not a lot of bells and whistles you can utilize. So you just got to put every effort you can into it. And they're very time consuming, from start to finish. I would say my very first feature film was 5 years maybe in the making, between hatching the script idea. And it was ironic too, because when I was deployed in the Persian Gulf on one of my ships, I was talking to the radio technician, and we just mapped out our story. And we wanted to tell a story that was a bit unique and a bit fresh and from a different viewpoint and perspective, and put it together. But it was back and forth through email. It sat on a shelf for a few months, a couple of years. All of a sudden, now I've got this piece of paper that has words on it, and I'm like, all right, well, what am I going to do with it? And it got to the point where we decided, hey, why don't we just throw it out for the world to see, to hear about. Let's start a dialogue. And I ended up posting on Facebook, because at that time I had written 3 books. I had a short film that did decently at the festival circuit, and I was a college professor. So I had a good group of people that knew my work ethic. They were passionate for seeing me succeed in what drove me. And I threw it to the world. I said, hey, who would have my back? Who would support me? And in doing so, I ended up having basically 500, 600 people comment, like, share this post. And I just went down the list and I talked to every single person I could. I networked, I left no stone unturned, raised the money for the budget. We shot the film, edited it, went to the festivals. We actually won Best Editing for a feature film at Beverly Hills Film Festival. And within a few weeks, we had offers for distribution. We were starting to talk to different companies for domestic, for international. And, at that point, it was my first actual business decision. But, I kind of learned a lot in that process. And, unfortunately, you can't go back in time. It's one of those situations where you have to make a decision that makes sense at that time and go with it. And you can't think of what if, you can't think of what could have been, because otherwise it's going to eat you. What you have to do to succeed is continue to make and create and have successes there, because at some point it all comes full circle. So, that's my 2 cents there. And I could talk forever. So I'm going to stop and let you ask more questions if you have them.
No, absolutely. Well, we do have 7 minutes before taking commercial break, but
Sure.
I was really caught off guard that first off, you went to Mother Woodbury because
Yes,
I looked
yeah.
at your Facebook and I didn't even see that.
Yeah, I think we missed each other because you went to Monroe Woodbury as well, I think, right?
Yes, I
Yeah,
was 2003 to 2006. Horrible
got it. So
years of my
yeah,
life.
we
Eh,
just missed each other, but yeah, I graduated in '03. My father lived in Monroe until I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago. So every once in a while, I would go back to my old stomping grounds. But I moved from New York down to Virginia about 9 years ago to work in my current position. So I do seafarer documentation for a ship registry. So it's kind of like the cool version of the DMV, where we do documents for ships and sailors. And that's the best way to describe what I do without giving you I don't know, an eye roll or whatever. So that's my day job. I've got a lot of fun side hustles between writing and film production. I also MC trivia. I pour ciders at farmers markets. I do a little of this, a little of that. One of my big passions is helping others. So between the film festival that I co-founded, where we have mentor programs and different opportunities and workshops for people to connect and learn, I'm part of a group called Artistic Fuel that just rolled out an app and a mobile app as well as a web platform to connect and collaborate. And I'm putting together a speaker series. So every month we have an industry expert talking about a specific pipeline piece. We have courses that we're building out. We have job opportunities, things that are listed that we're kind of pulling from different places. And ultimately, it's going to be a one-stop shop where you get your morning coffee, you sit down, you check any listings, you see what the news is going on, and you can add someone, you can check into something else, and maybe do a quick 5-minute course on tactics of screenwriting or submission processes, etc. So it's a really cool mission that we're working on. I don't stop. I think the success that people have, you just got to keep building towards a goal, small milestones, bit by bit by bit. And everything has a plan, everything has a reason why you're doing something. And if it doesn't, you need to stop doing it, because ultimately you're wasting your time then. Next
Oh,
question.
no, I agree with you. And if it's any possibility, I would like to collaborate. Maybe you can open doors for me.
For sure. Yeah. Feel free to join the platform. You can even create a space for it. You can start dropping some of your podcasts into it as well. And, it could be a place for you to really impact people that have passion, that have that creative drive. And, you never know. It's one of those things. Is one of my biggest mantras is you never can leave a stone unturned, because you don't know what's under it, and it could be a treasure. It could be a map that leads to a treasure, or it could just be a moth or some type of disgusting bug. But if you
It's
don't
fun.
lift the rock, you don't know.
It's funny. You just reminded me, the Ennis. It wasn't really that great, but it's from the Ennis family where he walks into the police station and he says, "Who are you? Who moved the rock?"
Yeah, you never know. I mean, that's ultimately what you got to boil down to. And everyone is going to have a different definition of success, right? Some of it's fame, some of it's mansions, some of it's simply just doing what you're passionate for. So it's a really loaded topic, because it's so different and diverse from person to person. But I just want to see people succeed. I want to have success myself, and I feel that every day that I wake up doing what I do is a good day. So
Well, any
yeah.
day you wake up, it's a good
That's
day.
actually even more accurate. Just rolling out of bed sometimes is successful. Um, yeah.
No, absolutely. So we got the easy questions out, but the first thing I want to say is thank you for your service. I didn't know about that either. You should actually
Yeah,
promote that more.
I did 9 years in the Navy. I was a strategic sea lift officer with military sea lift command slash Navy Reserve. It's a really weird pipeline that people don't really know. Whenever you say merchant Marines, people think, "Oh, you served in the Marines." It's not quite true. I served on a ship that was carrying bombs and missiles. So there was a danger element for sure. Long hours, I was always away. When I was a college professor, I would teach navigation, and every summer we would be out on a ship. So, there's a lot to it. The merchant marines are obviously something that are needed. Without ships moving cargo or gas or oil or your tennis shoes, um, life would be way more difficult. We export and import so many various, things between countries that it's just a really unique field, and I love doing what we do. I've been on the ships. I taught about the ships. Now I'm doing more of a regulatory component, looking at international laws and regulations and implementing them on vessels. So
No, absolutely. I don't like this because I don't want to interrupt,
it's
but
okay. I got
this
your
is
side.
commercial break.
Yeah,
uh,
yeah,
but,
copy that.
but the first thing you gave me a great idea because you were in the Marines. I interviewed ECW Hall of Famer Raven, who was in the Marines, and I have a friend named Rick who's in the Marines. So I was thinking, three people. Why not do an episode about the Marines? But we can definitely talk about that when we come back from the commercial break. But when we come back, in the meantime, if you haven't, make sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment when we come back for this commercial break.
Hi, I am Narcy Regina, and I just had a wonderful interview with Keith Andrew. I had a very fun time, and I got to make new friends in the process. So tune in to more, see what he's doing and what he's standing for. You will not be disappointed.
We're back from the commercial break. This is being streamed and watched on LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and all social medias. But the first question I want to ask you is, as we mentioned before the commercial break, we have a couple of friends in common that you were served in the Navy left. And why not do a Navy episode? I think that would be something really cool for their audience.
Oh, for sure. I love that. Supporting the military, because that's the thing too, is a lot of military members after they get out, or even when they're in it as active or reservists, a lot of them are creative, and they have a lot of really great programs. I'm part of veterans and media and entertainment. There's a bunch of divisions across the country, so I would strongly recommend for anyone who's tuning in, if you are a military member, you have to also do your day job, but you also have to do your passion and keep driving with that type of stuff. So that's very important.
But you know what pisses me off is not to go on a real tangent, but I just give my 2 cents. I used to work in a retail store. And first off, I support the Army, military, all that. My grandfather served in the Army and his father. So I have a ton of respect for them. And people who I interviewed, absolutely. If it wasn't for them, we'd probably be speaking another language or eating out of garbage cans, or probably. And the other thing I wanted to say is I forgot to hit the button. There you go, much better. Now let's double screen. We will have a special effect around it. But the thing that annoys me is, and I want you to be honest, you don't have to answer if you don't want to. You
Sure.
join the Army, you join the Navy, you give your life to this. And after they're done with you, they pretty much say, thank you for your service, and they throw you away. That's question one. And how you feel about that. But question two is, what antagonized me is, I used to be a cashier, and this woman used to buy, all these things, all these supplies. I'm like, oh, well, what are you doing? If you don't, I try to talk to everyone. Oh, what are you doing with, none of my damn business, right? What are you doing with all these clothes and underwear? Oh, we're helping the needy. Oh, that's nice. You're helping homeless? No, they can help themselves. We're helping people in Africa. And it's a vast problem. If there was more people that helped the homeless, there wouldn't be a homeless problem. And especially in the army, they use you and they throw you away. Do you agree or disagree?
Um,
If you don't want to answer it,
this
you don't have to.
No, I want to certainly answer. I feel like it's a very subjective and very topical conversation to be had. Um, certainly there are some people who thrive after the military, and then there are people who don't. And unfortunately, there's a lot in that subcategory or the bottom half of that. And it is a problem. It is something that needs to be further discussed and talked about and mapped out where programs are in place. There are places, there are programs, there are people helping those types of scenarios or with those scenarios. Like I said earlier, the veterans in media and entertainment, that's one element of helping veterans transition from the military to getting a job on a set, getting into a pipeline of a mentor and a protege relationship. But for the homeless, that's another can we can dive into. It's something that our country has way too many homeless people. There's a lot of programs that are helping specific regions, specific towns. We need to do more of that. If we could help support each other across the board, things are going to be way better in the second, third, fourth generation of this type of pipeline. There's no easy way to do it. People in a capitalist society tend to think about me, me, me. How do I get to where I want to go? To be honest, this is such a loaded question that we'd have to spend 5 hours just talking about that one thing. For my person, I like to donate to charities. I like to volunteer at other events. I do a lot of that type of community-based things, supporting a lot of that type of elements. But certain people in the homeless community also may not want to get help. It's one of those things because of a mental issue or personality issue, or sometimes it's pride. Every single person has their own story. And, one of the things I've been toying around with is doing a documentary about being homeless and talking to people where we hear their story, because that's ultimately how other people can see it. And everyone knows that it's a problem. People sometimes just prioritize their problems in a different manner. It's one of those situations where, and I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole, but it needs to be discussed more. And end of story. It's something that people need action. People need to do stuff about it. And you got to start small. You got to have attainable goals. If it's getting everyone off the street when it's under a certain temperature, great. We need to build more homes for community people. Those types of things. Maybe establish a mentor program where you bring in someone into a pipeline where they have a job, they have housing, something like that would work. But I'm not a politician, so unfortunately I can't create a law that makes something like that happen. However, I am over 35, so if I do decide to run for government or political office, maybe it's something in my future, but not for now.
Well, it's funny you mentioned 35. I'm gonna be 35 next Tuesday. So we're in the same age range.
Yes.
But next question I want to ask you is, what is the most rewarding part of being and having your own production company?
Say that last part. I missed it.
What is the most rewarding part about
the rewarding part. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So having my own production company is something that I've always wanted ever since I've created content. And I toyed around with a few choices. Do I want to have it where it's like Nautical Seafarers Productions, LLC, whatever, it's one of those situations where I am very proud of my name. I'm very proud of how hard I work. I'm very proud of the connections I have. Owen Palmiotti Productions made a lot of sense because I've already worked so hard to create that type of image for other people to use and see. But what's the most creative is the execution of an idea, is coming up with something, telling people about it, building a team, being able to actually put pen to paper, and I'm going to say our film reference, putting the film into the camera. Granted, we use digital, but you know what I mean. I want to have that collaborative effort where from start to finish, everything's moving along. And, honestly, one of the best, coolest, amazing feelings is sitting in a theater, watching your name roll across the screen, sitting there watching everyone clap or become emotional because of what you just created. One of my favorite stories ever is when we were at a festival. I was in the restroom and I was washing my hands, listening to people talking about what their favorite movie of the festival was. And it was mine. It was my movie. And I almost like lost it. I thought like, wow, like, if I could hit every milestone, writing the end on your first book is awesome. You just finished your first book. Publishing it, getting a box of your books on your doorstep is really cool. The smell of the ink, that's awesome. There's all of those achievable milestones where it just builds on itself and gets bigger and stronger and more noticeable. And one day I'd love to win an Oscar, but I can't do that without having a film that gets theatrical, or a film that actually makes money, or this or that. So there's all of those smaller steps that you got to build towards.
No, I agree. Now, have you worked with people with disabilities? And for people who want to work with you who have disabilities, how can they be a part of it?
Perfect. Anyone who's listening who has an interest, contact me. I'm sure Keith can share my contact information. Not a problem. I've done lots of shorts about disabilities. One was about rheumatoid arthritis, where on the outside, the mother looked perfect and healthy, but she had disabilities where she had a difficult time hanging out with her daughter, and I want to do something about the homeless. I want to do this. I want to do that. A lot of these have a pinpoint into something else, and I'm very big on veterans. I'm very big on this. The reality here is one of my big projects is about veteran suicide. I've lost way too many friends to suicide, PTSD, not getting enough support and help. Ultimately what I'd love is for everyone to have an outlet that's safe, that's not going to harm anyone, that has the ability to make one person's life better, and if you do one person at a time, it's going to grow. It's going to become a pandemic in a good way, not a bad pandemic, but a good pandemic where everyone's getting help and everyone's learning and everyone's, moving up the chain, basically.
Absolutely. Now, my last question for you is, how can our fans and listeners get in touch with you? And what websites would you recommend for everyone to use?
Sure. Well, I don't know if I have fans. If I do, that would make me really happy, because I feel like I bust my butt to improve and learn and help other people. So if I have any fans, feel free to comment that you are a fan. Show some love for Keith. Show some love for me. That would be great. OwenPalmiotti.com, artisticfuel.com. I'm on Facebook. I'm one of the easiest people to find because I'm everywhere. If you just type in Owen Palmiotti, every website pops up with some type of contact information, my phone number, my email. Connect with me on any social media platform. Say hello, say where you found me. You learned about me from the Keith Andrew interview. Perfect. At the end of the day, I'm always open and receptive to connecting and collaborating. I think I answered your question.
No, absolutely. And are you on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn?
I am on LinkedIn. I am on Facebook. I am on Twitter, but I don't tweet. I am on Instagram, but I don't IG. I have it harmonized with Facebook, so I can post it there and it goes to IG. Not a huge fan of those types of platforms because they're mostly like-based, which I think is a fake type of relationship. I'm a big fan of actually talking to people, networking with people, and having those face-to-faces like we're doing now. Prefer in person if possible, but unfortunately the world is really big and you're not always able to connect with people in person. But it is what it is. If everyone's open to that type of mindset and mentality, the world's going to be a really good place where people can.
But wrapping up, it was a real honor and privilege having you as a guest. Our goal is to reach 100 views. Once we reach 100 views, we can definitely do part 2. I am working on an event on June 10th. I would love to have you be a part of it. And with that being said, thank you for being a guest on our show. And for our fans and viewers, make sure to like and subscribe. Until we meet again, catch you later. Thank you, and have a good night.
Thanks, Keith. Appreciate you.